Good afternoon, everyone. This is my first and the last voice from me. Greetings from Myanmar, Burma. Coming from a small country in Southeast Asia, I'm honored to be here present. I want to offer a bit of wrap-up, and the journey ahead. The real wrap-up will be done by His Excellency Cardinal. Early in the morning, we have heard Professor Raman Nathan making a quotation, clear, outstanding quotation, that hear the cry of the earth with the cry of the poor. It's also followed by Professor Dubé and Professor Lee, and we are repeatedly hearing the same tone there. The world is crossing through a now or never moment. The Paris Agreement and COP21 performed a diplomacy masterclass. The resolve of the world leaders pulled the world from what one said, ecological suicide. The world, I do hope, is passing through its pivotal moment in history, urged by the moral voice of our Pope through Laudato Si. From the tunnels of despair, the world community has boldly climbed the first mountain, hoping to reduce the global warming by 2 degrees Celsius. We do hope tempo of the Paris will be accelerated in the COP22. I stand here the representative of Myanmar people, and for example, for the last 6 decades, man-made disasters created IDPs, refugees, and unsafe migration. Millions of our youth were driven to modern forms of slavery. But in this orgy of oppression by man-made disasters, sadly, nature is contributing heavily. Pope has brought to the world notice the dangerous cognac of economic injustice and environmental injustice. Many of the poor live in areas particularly affected by phenomena related to global warming, and their means of subsistence are largely dependent on natural reserves and ecosystem services like agriculture, fishing, and forestry. Laudato Si. This is our first great challenge, for example, to our people in Myanmar. German Watch, Myanmar ranks a very dangerous global risk index among the countries most affected by climate changes. We are one of the poorest countries in the world, but our risk index is climbing dangerously in the last 10 years. We have had 3 cyclones. The first one, Nargis 2008, killed more than 150,000, much unknown to outside, and impacted the livelihoods of 2.8 million people. We have had earthquakes, landslides, and historic floods that destroyed town after town in 2015, impacting the lives of 1.6 million people. We never had a cyclone for 75 years before the tropical storm Nargis attacked us. Our people are very poor, their shelters are miserable, and when nature attacks them, our poor died silently. The world has recognized that our suffering is a man-made disaster through its violent intervention into nature. We are near Bangladesh, a country that has been regularly attacked by nature. Both the countries are very poor. Unless rich countries agree to reduce their global warming, more people will die. This to me is a criminal genocide. When the poor and the weak are exposed, violent nature created by unrestricted use of fossil fuels by rich countries. So we ask COP22 to build on the goodwill of the COP21 to help poor countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Honduras with the carbon credit. As the Pope has indicated, this is a moral crisis. The casualness with which we deal with the death of poor in natural disasters. Rich countries need to pay their penalty to the poor countries where millions have lost their livelihood. This is even in selfish interest of the rich countries. Apart from the conflict refugees, we are increasingly meeting environmental refugees. They will soon start knocking at the doors of the rich countries if their livelihood is destroyed. This could be done through establishing monitoring institutions strengthened, as the Pope Francis has indicated. Because the stakes are so high, we need institutions empowered to impose penalties for damage inflicted on environment. My last appeal is, the most affected people are the indigenous people. We have mentioned, also heard this. I come from a rainbow nation of 7 major tribes and 135 tribes, minor tribes. They live one of the most beautiful natural biodiversity areas, but increasingly looted by modern capital. This is not only the nature is destroyed, for the ethnic people, the ecosystem is sacred. Every tree, every river, every land mass is animated by spirit, and they worship nature. Myanmar lost 30% of the forest last 5 years, making thousands of ethnic people traumatized. Nature is deeply spiritual to the indigenous people. Market economy has destroyed their meaning system, forcing many to seek succor in drugs. Myanmar is the second biggest producer of opium since the natural forests are destroyed. I urge COP22 to urge countries to sign up the UN protocols and conventions on indigenous people. The indigenous people own the resources. Returning the resources to these people will promote greater environmental protection. Indigenous people and the first people are to be our co-pilgrims in this great challenge. COP22, I hope, will undertake seriously the role of indigenous people in environmental protection. I also urge countries that have taken resources from the indigenous people, pay penalties and restore the ecosystem. In summary, we are a nation at the brink, a poor nation now having global risk index of 2. We have suffered under man-made disasters. We have become refugees, IDPs, not only because of war, but because of the destruction of nature. Kindly compensate these poor countries. Kindly make the world powers to recognize that indigenous people and their rights over resources. Thank you, and the real wrap-up will be made by Archbishop Tommaso. Thank you.